Why do we appear to need beauty in our lives? I am fortunate to be visiting Greece at the moment, and I'm certainly not alone in that. Every summer, tourists pour into Greece in large part to experience its extraordinary natural beauty. Worldwide, though, property with sea views or other spectacular natural vistas command the highest of prices. People will spend enormous amounts of time and money traveling to places of breathtaking beauty or designing homes and spaces they consider beautiful. And major museums across the world, like the Louvre and the Met, are packed. Why? We now know that much of the brain's activity occurs outside of conscious awareness. While you'll often hear claims that 95% of thought is unconscious, it's difficult to put an exact number on this. What psychologists broadly agree on, however, is that conscious awareness represents only a small portion of what the brain is doing. We also know that unconscious processes profoundly shape our perceptions, emotions, judgments, and decisions. The notion that a great deal of our mental life unfolds behind the scenes can be difficult, even unsettling to accept. Daniel Kahneman, however, one of the most influential figures in cognitive psychology, joked that the conscious mind thinks of itself as the president of the operation, when in fact it is actually more like the press secretary. In other words, consciousness is not where most thinking happens. It is where the result of unconscious process becomes available for reflection, communication, and action. This also aligns with the long-standing idea that the unconscious mind speaks to the conscious mind through dreams, symbols, and metaphor, as expressed throughout human history in art, mythology, and religion. Could it be that our attraction to beauty serves a similar purpose? Could beauty create the conditions where the boundary between the conscious and unconscious mind becomes thinner? Does beauty offer us a way of accessing parts of ourselves that are normally hidden? But isn't beauty in the eye of the beholder? Isn't it purely subjective? Perhaps, to some degree. But as a practicing artist and art professor, I can say with confidence that some visual relationships consistently appear more pleasing than others. In 1972, psychologist Gerda Smets conducted studies using abstract patterns and found that images with approximately 70% redundancy held people's attention the longest, even that of toddlers. Why? Evolutionary psychology offers another possible explanation. The savanna hypothesis suggests that people across cultures prefer looking at landscapes containing features that have supported human survival throughout the millennia. Fresh water, scattered trees, open visibility, and signs of animal life, because this is the environment which our species evolved. Additionally, as discussed in previous episodes, we also know that our environments affect us physiologically. Hospital patients with views of nature tend to recover more quickly than those without. Even something as simple as the colors surrounding us can influence mood and physiological states. Perhaps our desire to surround ourselves with art is, in part, an attempt to reconnect with the natural world that shaped our senses, to bring a parallel experience of nature's beauty into our rectangular homes. One of my favorite landscape painters, Paul Cézanne, said he never compared his art to other art. He judged his paintings only in comparison with nature. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote that all nature is a metaphor for the human mind. Perhaps that is why sea view property is so deeply desired. The mind recognizes itself in the vastness of the horizon, in the meeting of the land and sea, which becomes a metaphor for the meeting of the conscious and unconscious mind. Maybe the mind functions best when it inhabits environments that mirror its own structure. Beauty also encourages relaxation, which seems almost the opposite of the society we have built for ourselves, a society that constantly demands attention, urgency, and stimulation. We spend much of our lives in a state of perpetual mental activation. Beauty interrupts that. Beauty pulls us out of our default routines and reminds us that another mode of being is possible. One that is quieter, slower, and perhaps more deeply connected to who we are. When I was in art school in the 1990s, beauty had become something of a dirty word, an outdated idea to be questioned and avoided. To some extent, that attitude still lingers. I thought that idea was absurd then, and I still do now. Beauty is not outdated, nor is it a luxury. It is necessary, and perhaps the countless ways we seek it out in nature, art, architecture, music, and in one another are evidence enough of how we need and seek it out. So the next time you find yourself walking beside the sea, or through a forest, or standing before a work of art, maybe this is a question worth thinking about. See you next time.